I'm just about to start the installation process of the new transmission on the 2003 Subaru Outback here. So what I've gone ahead and done, this one came with a new flywheel, so I used a socket that was the same diameter as the bearing race on this pilot bearing, and I used a hammer and just drove it in evenly so that it was at the same depth as this pilot bearing from the old flywheel. If you're going to use the same flywheel, you'll take it to a machine shop and get it resurfaced, and then you'll put your new pilot bearing in. First you'll pound this one out, and then you put your new one in using something that won't damage the bearing race as you're driving it in. So I'm going to go ahead and take my flywheel bolts, and when I put this on my engine, I'll put two in just to hold it in place, and then when I tighten them down, I'll go in a crisscross fashion until they're all tightened and torqued to spec. When I dig up the specs, I'll put that in my video as well. So next time I turn this camera on, this will be on the engine and possibly torqued up already. I don't know yet. One thing I didn't mention yet was that when you put the flywheel on, you will put a dab of Loctite on your threads so that they don't vibrate themselves loose and have your flywheel come off during hard acceleration or something like that and cause a serious catastrophic failure. So each bolt will get a dab of Loctite, although I did not see any on these bolts when I removed the flywheel, and it seemed to come off fairly simple, but I always put a little dab of Loctite on as well, so hopefully that helps. Also, the torque specs for the flywheel are 58.2 foot-pounds, I believe, but it's 58, and then there's a point after it. I mean, I'm not gonna split hairs over the point. I could even go even a little bit more than 58, but yeah, 58.2. Alright, so I got the flywheel on the engine. The holes are lined up. Got my Loctite down here and my bolts. Put my drop of Loctite on my bolt in the hole without it blocked in. Yeah, I can't even hold that. So one thing to take note in is that when you take the flywheel and pressure plate, the whole clutch assembly off, which orientation the clutch disc material is. So this here, the flat side, is the flywheel side, and the side that kind of has raised like hub and springs and whatnot, that is the engine side. So yeah, I have it marked on my old flywheel, as you can see on the flat side. It is her old clutch disc, that the flat side is the flywheel side. And this does not say engine on this side, but clearly if the back portion goes to the flywheel, then the front portion goes to the engine. So essentially the hub sits inside there like that. And then you'll use your alignment tool to align that center spline up with the pilot bearing on the flywheel. Alright, so now you gotta clean off the surface of the flywheel using brake parts cleaner or some sort of degreasing agent, because I do generally use machine oil to keep it from rusting during storage prior to sale. I think prior before, I don't know. So the flywheel has dowel pins on it to align your clutch pressure plate up perfectly. Hopefully, anyway. Just need to make sure that those fit. Yeah, the correct installation procedure, like if you don't install the clutch correctly, you could also be causing early failure on your clutch. So same thing with the flywheel. You're going to want to tighten it up in a crisscross pattern, just like with wheels or whatever else. Circular that needs to be pulled down in a certain fashion. But I'm not going to get this too tight yet, because I'm going to actually just double check that that the clutch is, that the disc is centered in there. The transmission lined up with the front of the car. I'm about to bring it under there, put it on the jacks underneath the car, and jack it up into place, and then push it onto the guide pins for the bell housing to match to the engine. So I've gone and put a little never sees on the shaft, and some high heat grease on the whatever that is. I don't know what to call it right now, but anyway, I put a little bit of that on there so that it works free. One thing to note, you have these here clips, and you should probably have both of them installed. I had to go to my buddy's last night and pick up a couple. Thank God he had them in his shop. So basically it holds the release bearing to the fork so that it's not riding on the pressure plate while your clutch is running. So I'm going to slide this under, get it on the jacks, get it ready to go back up into the car, and hopefully it won't fight me too much.